Somewhere at the start of last century, there was a great explorer named Ernst Shackleton. Ernst. Thank you. And his idea, he wanted to, rally people together to try and get to the true South Pole. Big deal. And so you wonder, how do you recruit people to this massive kind of vision? It's not exactly sound too glamorous. So how do you kind of like beef it up, make it sound warm and inviting, and you want to undersell it? So yeah, I'll do that. He did the opposite. And legend has it that he put a particular advertisement in the London Times, this is back right at the start of last century, to kind of get people to sign up to join his crew. Did anyone know what the ship that he sailed on was called? The Endurance. Good job, everyone. And to sail, to find the South Pole. And this is the ad he put in the paper. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. Over 5,000 young men signed up to be on board his ship. And I remember hearing that story going, what is it? Why do we all hear something like that and go, yeah, because it's like the opposite that you'd want to sign up to, yet people lined up to have such an adventure. Because he knew the goal was worth it. There was this incredible idea of being the first to reach the South Pole. Like, it's not guaranteed. There's no promises. In fact, I can guarantee, if on any guarantees, that you'll never see your loved ones again and you're going to lose all your limbs in the process. But they signed up because the goal was massive. And I wanted to make it clear as we land this series today, whether it's your first time leaning into this series, it's week number 5 now, man, or you've been tracking along with it. The goal of this whole series, we're going against the current. The goal of it is so important. The goal is not to go against the current, the hazardous journey, the danger. The goal is Christ. And so what we talk about being as Jesus followers, our goal isn't to protest and isn't to make a stand on things. The goal of being a Jesus follower is in the term, following Jesus. Jesus is the prize, Jesus is the goal, Jesus is the reward. But no doubt about it, as we've looked over the past few weeks, to be a Jesus follower, and not just in this day and age, but at all times and in all nations, you would have positioned yourself inevitably in a way that culture, what is popular, what is easy, what is the fad, what is celebrated, you're going to inevitably not always in tune with that. But I wanted to make it clear because the invitation to follow Jesus, it can be like this. It's like, maybe you're going to be isolated. Maybe you're going to be, called out. Maybe you're going to feel like you're the one who isn't included. It's not going to be popular. But I tell you, the goal of following Christ is unlike anything culture could ever offer you. The peace that is found in following Jesus is unlike anything that is offered in the world. The joy that is found in knowing Jesus is so fantastic. Finances couldn't give it to you. Any other human relationship can't give you anything like you would find in Jesus. We are just so convinced that what we have found in Christ is unlike anything else culture or the world could give us. So the goal indeed is Christ, which is why Christianity, the goal of it isn't to make a point or to score points or to be the best. To be a Christian means you've found the way of life, and so you walk thus, which is also why Christians don't fret if they find themselves in the minority, if Christians shouldn't fret if they find themselves the culture minority or losing their voice, or even in the extreme of finding themselves persecuted, which Christians have over forever. Christians should fret if they find their voices ignored. That's what Christians should fret about. If we've found ourselves in a position where we have nothing of value and worth to contribute to our nation, to our communities, the people in our neighborhoods, and so our voice and our message is simply ignored, that's what Christians should be concerned about. Because at all times, whether we're on top or beneath, whether we're popular, unpopular, whether the current is with Christianity or against it, at all times, Jesus' followers are called to shine a light, to be a blessing, to serve, to seek justice, to love mercy, and at all times to walk humbly with our God. And if that puts us against the current, so be it. Sign up. Where am I? Because I found a goal worth giving my life for. Now, understand this. This is important if you're not a Christian and you're exploring church, you're watching along online, and you're not sure about, the whole Jesus thing, and if you believe in God. This is something so important that you have to appreciate about Christianity. We hold two what seemingly are contradictory truths. We hold them both at the same time. Jesus taught this, and the one whom we follow, he wants us to remember this. He said, I've told you all these things, all of my teachings, so that in me you may have, say this word with me, in me you may have what? in peace. So it's in me. Okay, so this is what Christians have found in following Jesus. We've found what kind of, isn't everyone looking for? Isn't the whole push of progress in our modern culture trying to find peace? We want to find peace politically. We want to find peace financially. We want to find peace relationally. It's what everything in our world is pushing for. And Jesus is saying, yo, you find it in me. And then he holds these two tensions at the same time. In this world, you will have trouble. That's number one. And number two, but take heart, I've overcome the world. So Christians are invited to hold these two tensions together at the same time, both in equal measure. One, that in this world you will have trouble. Let's just pause there. Thanks, Jesus, for stating the obvious. But it's important to recognize that, particularly if you're a skeptic, you can often view, aren't you Christians just trying to find a way out of reality? And then you're kind of burying your head in the sands, and to be someone who believes in God, it's you ignoring the problems that existence begs us. No, Jesus says, in this world, there is trouble. Let's just pause there. It's an important thing to always be reminded of. Because if you forget that Jesus said in this world you'll have trouble and you experience trouble, you'll then think somehow something's wrong and Jesus has left the building. He hasn't. He calls it out. You're alive. Existence means trouble, okay? He says, but take heart. That shouldn't discourage you. That shouldn't cause you to throw in the towel or to quit or be without hope and despair. He says, take courage because I've overcome it. I've overcome the world. I am what you were looking for. Troubled waters, yes, but I am the ship that will help you navigate the troubled waters. So to forget either one is going to be problematic, because if you forget the idea that Jesus has overcome the world, you'll think that you have to do all the overcoming and that it's all on your shoulders and you have to be extraordinary. Or if you forget that Jesus said, in this world you'll have trouble, and you think, yeah, Jesus overcome. You think every time you experience trouble, Jesus has abandoned you, which he hasn't. So you must hold both of these true at all times. So my question is around these two tensions is, do you live like this? Do you live like you believe this? If you were to look at your actual living, your life, this is what we've been hopefully exploring through this series. Do you live like both of these things are true at the same time? So I live like aware that yes, life is troubled, but I'm also living at the same time that Jesus has overcome the world. Do I live like I believe that? Or to put it another way, those who see your life and those who know you, would they say that you believe this? And would they say that you live your life in such a way that you live with both of these tensions true at the same time? And I have found that if there's one area in our modern culture, and I honestly can't believe I'm even doing this today. I'm going to regret this, but I just want to give what's the right term? I'm going to say it. I'm going to give a trigger warning to us all. And I want to not just give a disclaimer, but I want to put an apology right at the top that I'm even discussing what we're about to discuss today in church. Because I know you don't come to church to hear what I'm about to talk about, but I have to talk about it because it's everywhere. And the area that this tension is often seen as maybe contradictory to how Christians live. Ready for this? Drum roll in your thighs, please. Modern politics. I know, I already regret talking about this. And again, if you're new to church or you're watching online, you're already probably rolling your eyes going, I know exactly what they're going to say because I've heard all the Christians about, I know exactly what the Christians are against. I know their stance on everything, and the Christians always, they're going to make their voice heard in all these areas. And so again, I don't know why I'm doing this to my career. So this could be the last you ever hear of me today. So be it. Why do I need to discuss this tension going against the current and the Christian approach to life and reality? Because unfortunately now, modern politics has found its way into almost everything. Everything. So there's barely any topic now that we can discuss and be involved in without there being some form of involvement that has political dissension and discussion and robust debate and disagreements. And we all know how great our culture is at having good, healthy political discussions without it getting personal and vilifying people's reputations. We know we're great at that as a culture, right? So we have to talk about this. If you're a Jesus follower, how are we supposed to go against, what does going against the current look like? Well, I know what it means. It means voting for this party. No, it doesn't. So what does it mean to go against the current? If we found the tension of politics has got involved in all aspects of life, unfortunately, it's even got involved in dynamics of faith communities now. What is a Christian to do? To illustrate this, again, I already regret doing this as a pastor. This is so horrible of me because I know you don't come here, you turn on the television every day, you hear this stuff, you don't need to hear it here, but I have to do it at least once in every 10 years. So Do you guys remember a little thing a couple of years ago when we had like lockdowns and all the things? So we all knew it was going to happen. Eventually, a health crisis was going to turn political. We all knew it because politics gets involved in everything. So instead of it just becoming something about, let's get over this couple of weeks to stop the spread and then we'll move on with our lives, it became political. Things drew out, politics gets involved in everything, and there we were. Now that's to be expected. That's in this world you will have politics, but take heart. So that's to be expected. What was troubling is that the politicizing of everything out there started to creep in here, into churches, into faith communities. And that's what I want to speak into today. It's expected that there will be disagreements and dissensions and things erupt and people pick their sides and it becomes hostile, out there. But to people who take the words of Jesus literally, that I have overcome the world, in me you will have peace. Surely our approach must reflect that belief. Surely our approach to the way we engage with very real reality, that works. It should sound different, it should look different if we really believe the words of Jesus, that in him we have peace, in this world you'll have trouble, but he has overcome the world, so go for it. So do we live like that even within these tensions? And it was so heartbreaking to me to witness that our witness was undermined during those couple of years, where our communities were angry and people were scared and fearful and lives were torn apart and there was so much, all the things going on there. I was like, at first I was hopeful. I was like, this is a moment for the church to shine its light. This is a moment for the church to say, there's another way that you can look to, that yes, in this world you'll have trouble. We're with you in that. But we've also found something that, supersedes that transcends politics, that transcends the tensions. We have found peace in the person of Jesus Christ. Like, I was like, this is our moment. We're going to shine. So eventually the creep, now it didn't happen here. You guys were amazing. You kept being for the coast. You kept being about reaching people. You kept being loving people. But I think it's fair to say, if we looked around as a whole, eventually Jesus followers kind of sounded like everyone else. And it broke my heart because I was like, we should sound different. We should have a little bit of salt, a little bit of light mixed in with how we engage these very real tensions. And so quickly Christians, I saw it en masse, started picking their team and picking their party, and this is my stance, this is my position. Now it's fine, you have your position and your stance, but if that's what you were then known for, and you're like, I'm gonna make sure my team wins at all costs and my view is heard and my view is understood. But the problem is this, to the Christian goal in politics, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Christian goal in politics, or really indeed any public forum, is not to win, it's to be a witness. And if you play the games of everyone else in community, like we're gonna win and my side's gotta be heard, well, you've lost your witness. Because if we win, but we have undermined our witness, then we've actually lost. If we win, but we've undermined our witness, what's our witness? Our witness is that we point to something that is bigger than the problems of politics and the problems of our time. They are real. Jesus says, in this world you'll have trouble. So it's not ignoring them. It's not avoiding them and not being engaged with them. Get engaged, but it's always with this tone of, but take heart. I have overcome the world. So don't do it with fear. Don't do it with anger. Don't do it with vilification. Don't do it with the whole tone and the approach that the rest of culture does it. You should be against the current. There should be another angle to you. There should be another hope about you. Oh, okay. No one's going to say amen to this. I know, but I know I'm deep into it. Let's keep going. The problem is this, that if we feel like, yes, we let our voice be heard and we win and our side won, whatever your side is, and I don't know what colors you go for. I've tried to dress my colors today, so I'm joking, or am I? You'll never know. That was my opening joke, but anyway, I snuck it in there. I would hate to think that my team wins, but somehow in the middle of it, the Christian hope has been lost in all of that. So what's the point? And then I've lost, and I haven't been a witness. Okay, if I haven't convinced you, this is, I think, how the Jesus followers first try to wrestle with this. In the first century, if you've never read a Bible before, after Jesus taught and then died and then was resurrected, he left followers. And our New Testament is made up of letters written by those who witnessed his life, death, and resurrection. And one of his first followers was Peter, the Apostle Peter. And at the start of his life, Peter was the most fearful guy. He was violent. He was known for taking out swords and cutting off people's ears. Like the dude had attitude. And then in the latter part of his life, we see a very different Peter. The longer he followed Jesus, It changed his life. And that's worth knowing before we read this, because you might feel like you're the young Peter and you're trying to figure out faith. You might feel like you wrestle with violence and anger and bitterness, and you're like, how can I have something to do with Jesus at all? Well, you're in luck. Jesus picked guys just like you. And the longer you follow Jesus, you'll find he radically will change who you are. And it's an amazing thing. So Peter experiences that. And at the end of his life, he wrote 2 letters that are included in our New Testament. And both of them, particularly the first one, were written to Christians who were being persecuted, who were overtly a cultural minority in the Roman Empire. And so Peter writes to encourage persecuted Christians who were a severe minority, even though the faith was growing, to encourage them about how to engage with the culture around them. And here's how Peter puts it in his words. He says, I want you to live such good lives. Isn't that amazing? I want you to live good lives. Live good lives. Live it. Don't just talk about it. You've got to live it. I want you to live it among the pagans. Who were the pagans? People who weren't Jesus followers. It's an all-inclusive term that includes all people who weren't Christians. He says, though they may accuse you of doing wrong, you guys are the wrong ones, you guys are the bigoted ones, you guys are the outsiders, you guys are the weirdos, though they accuse you of that, they may see your good deeds, your life, like that you're actually living like you believe this stuff, and then they may glorify God on the day he visits us. Whoa. So take in for a moment what Peter's suggesting here is that irrespective of what they think about what you believe, and because Christians believe some pretty out there stuff, he goes, when they look at your life, how this outworks in your day-to-day, how you go about being a good neighbor, an employee, a boss, a manager, a spouse, a parent, a child, whatever you want to throw in there, your very life, it says, live it in such a way that even if they think what you believe is utter nonsense, he goes, they may look at your life and be like, oh man, but I can't look at that. They've found something, I want that. In other words, our message may be offensive, but our witness must not be. So of course Christianity's message is going to rub people up the wrong way. Like Christianity calls us out that we can't save ourselves, that all of our great works, all of our community service, all of us being nice to people, not being evil, surely that's good enough. Christianity says you're good enough, it's never good enough. That's why God had to die on a Roman cross to pay for your sins. Like that's offensive to our sense of dignity and uprightness, calling out us that we're sinners, we've fallen short of God's standard. So of course it's going to be offensive to all of us to hear eventually. But as much as our message will always be offensive to culture, our witness, Peter would say how you live your lives. Don't let that be offensive. The way you live your life should be inspiring. The way you live your life should give hope to people. The way you live your life should point people that you somehow have found peace, not in politics and not in your job, but you have found peace in someone who transcends politics and someone who transcends culture. You have found peace in Jesus. Some people are like, wow, like I don't understand everything you believe, but why are you living like that? I found peace in someone who's far bigger than anything else in this world could offer. And so ever since I remember I was in university and I studied a bit of political science at uni, which was tremendously exhilarating. I was so challenged by this idea. Like, I'm going to have viewpoints and ideas that will be different, but what about how I live? Like, we can disagree on topics and opinions, but what about my life? How I live? And so I was challenged by this thought. If people saw how you lived, would they still listen to what you say? For 20 years, this has been rattling around in my brain ever since I was a student. You can have your stand, make your opinion, all those things. But Peter's challenge was they should see how you live. Something about your life. And what is it about our life? Is that we're the most upstanding citizens? No, it's how we live in response to what we believe. Do I really believe that the fact there's trouble in the world shouldn't surprise me? Oh, there's trouble in the world. Oh no, Christians go, yeah, that's right. But we take heart because we follow someone who's overcome the world. And I believe that too, both. So I think if people saw then how I actually live my life, my everyday life, did that give any credibility to my opinion on things? Because how you live will add weight to when your voice is needed to speak into something. And this is why it's so important. We talk about it every week. Hear me, we say we're for the coast because we are. And we're putting in a nice little hashtagable bundle there. But it's important that our community knows how much God is for them, that he loves them. It's important that we continue to be generous and we serve. Listen, more than any other group in the entire Sunshine Coast, you as a church feed so many hungry people, literally every single week. You provide incredible, safe environments for the next generation to be loved and led and inspired. Do you know, in this building here on Friday night, we housed a Youth Alive rally with around 1,000 high schoolers. That's the smell in the building, if you're wondering what that is. Almost 200 teenagers gave their lives to Jesus on Friday night, which is just, it's absolutely amazing that it happened here. It's so cool. So again, this is kind of our role. Like at the church, we've got to continue to be for the coast and make room for people to know there's a God. We do that intentionally. Some people are like, what is going on? Why do you, like what you believe is, I've always thought it's weird, but I can't deny that how you live your life, how you raise your children, how you do that. And it's not just how we win, it's also how we lose. It's like, when we've struggled and when we've messed up, why didn't you guys beat yourself up? Because we've discovered grace and God forgives us and welcomes us. Like everything about our life should be an amazing example of not who we are, but who we follow. Okay, so Peter goes on to get real practical. And again, don't beat me up for this. These are Peter's words, so you can take it up with him. He says in the next verse, therefore, submit yourselves. Can we all say that? No, don't say it. Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to human authority. That's our, a government, those in charge, whether to the emperor as a supreme authority or to governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. So Peter gets right to the heart of it. These are the Christians who are persecuted by the Roman authorities. And yet Peter writes, submit yourselves to them, right? Whether it's the emperor who's in Rome. Now, Peter's audience were, you can read it in the opening verses of this letter, where in the region of what we'd know today is modern day Turkey. And so he writes them, even to your governors that are there, you've got to submit yourself to them, okay? Come under their authority. And this is, again, we've all got our own opinions about this and how to do that, but this is how they saw the Jesus way of working out in practice. Now, to give you an idea just how weighty, we interpret Peter's words through our culture and whoever's in power now and who our emperor is right now, So we interpret it through our modern lens, but how did they hear this in the first century, in ancient Asia Minor, as the region was called? How would they interpret Peter's writing? And to give you a sense, about 50 or so years after Peter wrote this letter, we discovered another letter written by the local governor at the time named Pliny, or Pliny the Younger. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, but it's the best way I can read it. And his uncle at the time was the emperor of all of Rome, Emperor Trajan. So this is about 110 AD. We've discovered this letter writing to the region where the Emperor Trajan at the time, remember, this is the emperor who was supposed to submit under the authority of, he wrote an edict and sent it out to all of the Roman provinces throughout the empire, saying, if you find Christians, this weird sect, arrest them, and if they don't recant, then execute them. I love democracy. So that was the law. And the local governors have to outwork this. So we read, again, 50 years after Peter wrote this letter, to the region that Peter was writing to, we find this letter in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, of Pliny writing, who was the local governor, writing to his uncle, who was the emperor, how to outwork this new edict or this new law. And here's what he writes. He says, the sum and substance of their fault, so these Christians he found, this is the faults we found with them, and their error, had been that they were accustomed to meet on a fixed day before dawn. That was Sunday, right, where we're doing today. Why did they meet before dawn? Because there were no weekends back then. So it's kind of like, imagine if we had church on a Monday morning before we all went to church. Imagine, you want to do that? We'll try it maybe sometime. That's what Christians do. Before everyone went to work on a Sunday, first day of the week. Why the first day of the week? Because that was the day Jesus was resurrected, and in a way of every week celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, they gathered on a fixed day on Sunday. They gathered on a fixed day and to sing responsively to a hymn to Christ, it's to God. So do you know that what you're doing today, gathering first day of the week, not so before dawn, none of you will be here, but the fact that we sing, this is old. This is like, and in the olden days, this get us all busted, and also only a couple of years back too, depending on. So, anyways, so it goes on and said, this is what they did. They would fixed day, they would sing responsibly to a hymn as to Christ as to a God. Goes on, and this is also what they did. So they'd sing, and then they'd bind themselves by oath. So they get together, all right, let's make an oath. And it wasn't to some crime. Like there weren't some little group out of here going, we're going to do a crime. says, no, they bound themselves by an oath not to commit fraud, not to theft, not to adultery, not to falsify their trust, nor to refuse to return a trust. So, don't rip people off, don't steal when called upon to do so. Okay, so as he's trying to suss out, okay, I've had to arrest all these Christians. And so he gets to know, wow, what do we find out about these Christians? Well, they meet on Sundays, they sing a couple of songs, and then they make an oath together to not break the law and to be integrous with their marriage vows. In other words, Pliny realized something. These horrible Christians who should be arrested, he realized something grave. Christians made the best Roman citizens. Let's throw that up. There it is. You were laughing. That's a good point, Jono. Throw up the slide. Good job, Dan. So he's like, what do we do with this? Because we're trying everything we can to make people good citizens, and we bring in our Roman legions, and we threaten them by death, and the gallows, not the gallows at those points, the cross, we crucify them all. But yeah, here were the Christians that this is their crime. They would sing lovely hymns about Jesus as God, and they would say, now let's be the best citizens. What were they doing? This is the Peter thing, right? He's saying, because they would have read Peter's letters, saying, here's what you do. Live such good lives that they may vilify what you believe, but they might look at your life and be like, what? This is what's going on. This is 110 AD. So he goes on, right? He goes on in the letter. You can read it for yourself. It's all on Google. It's fascinating to read this letter. Pliny the Younger, if you want to Wikipedia. Don't read Wikipedia, but you get the idea. Let's go. Keep going, Dan, the man. He says, I judged it all the more necessary then to find out what the truth was by torturing 2 female slaves who were called deaconesses. So if you've ever been a deacon in your local church, just know you are following in the footsteps of amazing women. So not only were they slaves in the Roman Empire, think of this. This is why the Roman Empire got overtaken by Christianity. Because to those who were slaves, which was a third of the empire, those who were women and children, 3 big areas that under Roman Empire had no recognition, nothing protected them. In Christ, they found something that the world could never give. And next minute, all of the Roman Empire all the women, all the slaves, all the children, they're all Christians. Well, I guess we're Christian then. And so by torturing 2 of these female deaconesses who were serving the local church, who then go from serving the local church to then serving their master, they tortured them. And here's what they discovered about the real agenda behind Christians. I discovered nothing else but depraved, excessive superstition. You know what the superstition was? The resurrection. That's all they could find out. Now, the reason this was a problem, because Caesar regarded himself as a god, and you could worship any god you wanted as long as you included him. And so Christians were the first vilified atheists because they didn't follow all the Roman gods. They followed one. And so Christians were not despised for their behavior in the first century. They were despised by the emperor for their allegiance to Christ. So again, this is the challenge for us in the modern world then. If people are going to vilify you for being against the current, may it not be for how you live. Yeah, fair enough that you've put your trust in Jesus, that you follow the King of the universe. Fair enough. But don't let it be because of how you've lived your life. Your light should shine. Your life should have a different tone to it. In the middle of a world that's so noisy, your life should bring incredible light and hope to the world, because that is what we claim to have found in Jesus Christ. Now, Peter goes on and he says, for it is God's will that by doing good, you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. So again, people might have all their best arguments, but by the way you live, they should be like, you know what? I can say all the things I want to say, but I can't argue with your life. Live as free people, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Live as God's slaves. And then he said, and this is a passage I want to land on today. Then he says something that seems contradictory, and it's hard to make peace with it, but this is how they wrestled it out, being Jesus followers at the beginning. It says, so therefore, show proper respect to who? Everyone. Those on the left, those on the right. Every color, every creed. Show respect just to those who believe like me. No way. To everyone. But our culture doesn't do that. Like if I think differently, if I vote differently, then people call me out. Yeah. So go against the current. Show respect to everyone. Love the family of believers. So you pour all your love into your Christian brothers and sisters, right? They got your back. Fear God. Now this is important. He should be the only one who has our fear. Why do Christians then... These are Christians who had a lot of reasons to be scared of a lot of things. What broke my heart is to see a couple of years back where Christians seemed to be just as panicked and fearful about everything else like those who didn't have hope like you do. I was like, Peter's saying, fear God only. Don't fear laws. Don't fear opposition. Don't fear them. Fear God and honor the emperor. You mean that emperor who is out to get us? Yep. But that's tough. Yep, R. Shackleton and his men. He never said, oi, join the ship and it's going to be the best. He said, it's going to cost you. You might win. Probably not though. And that's being a Christian. Because if you really believe the words of Jesus, he's like, hey, in me, you'll have peace. Because in the world, there's trouble. That's life. Everyone's got that, but not everyone has peace. In me, you have peace. And take heart. I have overcome the world. So that's why Peter can write this. Therefore, show respect to everyone. Okay, I'm good for that. And honor the family of believers. Fear God, okay, but honor the emperor. So which one is it? Where do I stand? Is it emperor, God, believers, everyone? What do we call this? We call this being in a predicament. We call this being stuck between a rock or the rock and a hard place and a hard life. It's both. But this is where Christians are invited to stand. I call it the messy middle. I know we'd love to pick a team and pick a side and pick a position, but often we don't have that option in front of us. And to be a follower of Jesus, sometimes it means you have to fill the space that the culture has neglected. Culture more and more has gone to pick your team and pick your side on everything. And if we're to go against the current, that means, well, I guess I'm walking in the middle then. Problem with the middle is you get shot from both sides. Yeah. So Peter's saying, fear God, honor the emperor, respect everyone, love the believers. It's the messy middle. Because we aren't to take our cues from culture. We're to take our cues from Christ. And I've certainly found myself in this position, being a pastor at times, that often the field to make a stand in the middle, you get accused of not making a stand. No. The decision to not pick a side is a stand. But it's choosing not to stand on the politics of the day. It's choosing to stand to follow the one whom you've given your life to follow Jesus. It's refusing to politicize the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's a stand. I find it utterly challenging to look at Jesus knowing that he himself didn't seem to take a side. He refused to. He didn't give himself to one group. I mean, just look at his first followers. In his disciples, you had zealots, who would be the modern term for what we'd understand as a terrorist, who wanted to do everything they can to undermine Rome's authority in their region. But he also recruited tax collectors who professionally had sided with the Roman Empire. They would have been arch enemies in everyday life. But Jesus you can both be my followers. He recruited blue-collar workers, fishermen, and he recruited white-collar workers, accountants, even though he backstabbed Jesus. But anyway, get the idea. They were all followers of Jesus. Jesus refused to give himself to blue-collar, white-collar, left, right, nationalists, revolutionists, none of them. Why? Why did Jesus not give himself to a group? Because he didn't come to pick a side. He came to take over as the King of Kings. And so to follow Jesus means we're following a way that transcends politics. We don't get caught in the current of our times. We follow something higher. And the good thing about this is it's in the middle where problems are solved. And this is the call for Christians. In the middle is where there's nuance. And with the collapse of the middle, nuance has left the building. Everyone picks their team, fires shot at the other side. And who's left in the middle? People who are ready to walk the tricky Jesus way. Without nuance, productive discussion around complex topics becomes virtually impossible. This is why ultimately to stand in the middle requires grace. The middle requires grace. For you to stand in the middle, it's recognized this isn't about me being some guys have all the ideas sorted. It means I need God's help in this. I need to trust that God's in control. I need to trust that he holds the universe in his hand and can hold my life. It takes prayer. It'll take curiosity. It'll take humility. That's why Christians are invited to be the most humble people in our whole community. It will take compassion. It will take patience. It will take vision. It'll take hope. These are all Christian virtues. And these are all virtues that points to something that is bigger than politics, that's bigger than the current cultural climate. They're bigger than that. They transcend that. And in fact, Tim Keller put it, I think, so profoundly in his book, Justice in the Bible. It's a paper he wrote. He puts it this way. He says, when the church as a whole is no longer seen as speaking to questions that transcend politics, and when it is no longer united by a common faith that, again, transcends politics, well, then the world sees strong evidence that both Nietzsche, Freud, and Marx were right, that religion is just a cover for people wanting to get their way in the world. And if you just want to get your way in the world and you pick your team, all you're left with then is to cancel the other team. We have a term for that in our culture, cancel culture, right? You think differently to me or you view differently to me, I'm going to cancel you. But that's absolutely preposterous. The moment you start canceling people out for having a different view to you, a different idea to you, you've canceled discussion, you've canceled nuance, you've canceled solving problems, you just picked your team. Christians are to never play that game. Why? Because we follow Jesus, Christians are now reconciled people who have been given the ministry of reconciliation, which means Christians don't go about canceling others. Christians walk in the messy middle, ready to be vilified, saying there is another way. There's a way of hope, there's a way that transcends differences, and it somehow can still bring people together. And this is the Jesus way. And this is the way we're invited to do as we go against the current. And so today I want to finish again with the words of Jesus, to be reminded of what we are invited into. And then we're going to pray together through song. And this, again, what we read at the start, Jesus put it this way. He said, in me, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In a world that there's political division and there's anger, and like, again, you turn on the news for just 1 second, you're going to see all the things we all disagree on. We're not invited to play that game. We're invited to do something above and transcend it. Does that mean we don't delve into that and lend our voice and speak into things? You absolutely do, but you don't do it from a position of superiority. You don't do it from a position of opposition. You do it from a position of, I have found peace in Jesus Christ. And irrespective of what happens here, I'm going to keep my peace. I'm going to speak with grace. I'm going to bring a different tone, a different approach, a different understanding. I'm going to bring humility. Why? Because that's the Jesus way. And I found in Jesus peace, which means I can consciously go in and say, in this world we'll have trouble. And no political organization will remove the trouble. No candidate that I vote for will remove the trouble. No legislation will ultimately remove all the trouble. There are people, there will be trouble. So Jesus is saying, but in me you got peace, so that you can take heart, because I have overcome the world. This is why Christians shouldn't be in the room saying who to vote for. People should be the ones saying who to follow. Follow Jesus. Put your trust in him. Follow the Jesus way. It'll make you unpopular. It will lead you into the middle, where there aren't always easy answers to very complex questions. But it's where the path of peace, well, Jesus would say, ultimately lies in following him. So what I want to do today as we consider this, because hopefully I've kind of annoyed everyone to the same degree, I wanted to finish through, our team's got a song today, and it's a prayer. And it's a prayer to stand in the middle, to stand following the Jesus way. And I'm conscious that from the very beginning, Christians haven't prayed for a way out. Christians have always prayed for the way to stand. The first Christians, we read in the book of Acts, that were sandwiched between the Roman Empire, the Jewish temple. They didn't pray God to deliver them. He said, God, give us boldness to be your witnesses, boldness to share your word, boldness to shine a light. And that's what we as Christians are invited to do as well. So as the team sings this song today, I want it to be your prayer that God, help me to be bold, help me to stand for the Jesus way in a culture that's always moving. Thanks, guys. Well, Holy Spirit, today, thank you so much for your courage and your hope for every one of us. Lord, I'm asking for our witness every day as we go about our very lives, as Peter put it. May our lives be an incredible witness to a higher way, a bigger way, and a better way. I pray for the hearts that maybe feel at times sandwiched between maybe different opinions and different views and not know what to do. I'm asking that they would know they have their ultimate peace in you. And I pray every heart would know it without a shadow of a doubt, the peace that's found and offered in Jesus Christ. I pray that in his name. Amen. Hey, if you're new to church and you're wanting to, like, where do I go from here? What party should I vote for? No, I'm joking. Don't do that. But we do have some real practical next steps we want to invite you into. We think there's always a next step for someone to help them know God, to find community, and to love like Jesus. And so after the service today, I'd love to invite you to swing by a Connect Lounge, meet some of our team. There's still time to sign up for one of our short courses known as Alpha. And that happens tomorrow night, or our prayer course. And there's so many practical steps that people can take to find out more about our faith. What do I do with this Jesus thing? But I want to invite you back for next week as we begin a brand new series called Lost in Translation. And if you didn't know, it's Mother's Day. So it's going to be a great service to be here with your mum. Going to be a ton of fun as we begin a brand new series. And other than that, have the most wonderful week. God bless you heaps. Thank you, guys.